Hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to be doing a little bit of text structure today. We're going to examine text structure in biographical writing, uh, the biography of Nicholas Tesla. Or specifically, we're going to look at chronological, cause and effect, and comparison and contrast. Okay. Um, the one that they seem to mention the most and seems most important to them, or at least the example they like the most, is chronological order. So, if you take a look at that little picture on the left, history and order, that's a way. Chronos means time. Chronos is a Greek god as well. Chronos. See what kind of pictures we get for Chronos. No, yeah, it's good. The god there. He was not a nice one. Not a nice god. He ate his own children. That was Chronos, and then eventually his own children overthrow him and kill him. Zeus does. So if you need an image to remember for Chronos and Chrono, well, that's it. And he has to do with time, right? So, you see any time up here? Chronos time. Well, that's as good as we get for the picture there. All right. So let's take a look in our notes and see what they have to say about these various. I want to write all this. So text structure, biographical writing. All right. So biographical writing is a type. Ooh, it's being silly. All right. Actually, will be better to go over again is craft and structure. Craft is the how an author achieves her or his purpose, and the structure is what. Okay, so let's take a look. Can probably make that a little skinnier. There we are. Biographical writing is a type of nonfiction in which the author tells about important events in the life of another person, right? Autobiography being they tell about their own life. Biographies provide factual information about the subject and details and descriptions related to the person's life. So, an overall idea of this is descriptive writing is something to consider. Most biographies are written in chronological order, describing key events in the subject's life. However, individual paragraphs may be organized differently in order to provide information that supports a key idea. Here are some common paragraph structures. Chronological order, the order in which events actually occur. Comparison and contrast, the explanation of similarities and differences between related subjects. An explanation of why something happens and how it affects other things. Represented visually, you might think of something like chronological order as a timeline. Comparison and contrast as a Venn diagram. And cause and effect, for me, I often think of a sequence box, but it can sometimes be like there's a cause and then there's a couple effects. So something to think on. Ooh, oh, I love the eraser there. It's so good, so efficient. Okay. So let's look at chronological order first together, okay? And I want to use this little video to kind of get it in our heads.
Chronological order is a way of arranging actions, events, or things according to the time they occurred. It is demonstrated by showing what happened first, what went on next, what came about in the succeeding occurrences, and until what took place last. This manner of presentation is also called time or linear order. Here are 5 examples of this method. This technique is mainly crucial in history and social studies. Events are presented from how something began until how it ended. Biographies of key people are often arranged from childhood to one's passing. Let us say that you are a teacher informing your students about George Washington. You can commence by talking about his younger years, then his life as a surveyor, followed by his military career, his involvement in the American Revolution and the Constitutional Convention, his presidency, his retirement, and finally, his death. This manner of presenting...
Right? Relatively straightforward, right? You start at one date and then move your way down the timeline. That's chronological order. Now, the other two we're going to cover, cause and effect and compare and contrast, but we're going to do that with one of my good friends, vocabulary. So let's take a look at vocabulary.
Much like buildings, text, especially informational and non-fiction text, have to be structurally sound, or else they'll fall over. You feel me? Yeah. Let's get it. Let's go. When you read informational text, you see the pattern and the way that it's written. Oh yes. There are 5 main structures you can check. Find the structure and they get less complex. Let's flex and break down all 5. Follow me. The text structure, mastermind. This first text structure is called description. It describes the topic and its characteristics. You'll see such as and, for example, and details and adjectives like in this sample. The famous Leaning Tower of Pisa is located in Italy. Mamma mia! It stands over 180 feet tall, tilted 4 degrees like it's starting to fall. That's description. The author describes the tower, so you have the image in your mind. Now peep this. The structure called sequence. It gives events from way back to most recent. Construction began in 1173, but it was halted when war was decreed. Building stopped for a while, then resumed. Many years later,
I'm seeing some overlap with sequence and chronological this very second. I know you're seeing it too.
1272. Sequence contains dates and the words next, then, before, first, second, and third. Cause and effect is another way to organize. It's when authors tell what happened and why. Soft soil made the tower settle unevenly. As a result, it leans. Increasingly, builders tried to balance it with more floors, but due to extra weight, it leans even more. Words like because, since, if, then, due to mean a cause and effect is coming right to you. In text, I find description. I find sequence, cause, and effect. You can compare and contrast all day, all day. There's a problem and solution, I bet. In text, I find description. I find sequence, cause, and effect. You can compare and contrast all day, all day. There's a problem and solution, I bet. If you heard the hook, you already know. There's 2 more text structures to go. Sometimes the author introduces a problem and then explains how somebody solved it. The tower leans more with each passing century. The tilt increased to more than 5 degrees. The people feared it would collapse into ruins. Now we know the problem. What's the solution? Earth was removed from under the monument and weights were added to balance out the top of it. They corrected the lean at least a little bit. That's problem and solution, not a riddle, kid. Just look out for the words involved. Since question, problem, solution, and solve. I got another text you don't have to ask. And it's text structure, compare and contrast. It explains how things are different and the same with the words in bold I'm about to say. Both the Tower of Pisa's construction and the Washington Monument saw destruction. The Washington Monument, named after George, had construction paused for the Civil War. Like the Leaning Tower, it's a of the buildings were different. One was erected as a church bell's tower, while the other honored a founding father. There we compared the 2 different towers. That's 5 text structures in a 16th of an hour. In text, I find description. I find sequence, cause, and effect. You can compare and contrast all day, all day. There's a problem and solution, I bet. In text, I find description. I find sequence, cause, and effect. You can compare and contrast all day, all day. There's a problem and solution, I bet.
Oh boy, old car alert. All right. So there's our little review of them. Let's take a look at some different texts. So here's a chronological text. It's called The Story of the World, History for a Classic Child. And it is from Volume 1, Ancient Times. So let's go through this book just a smidgen. And let's see how this is a chronological text. All right. Let's go through here. Ooh. The earliest people, Egyptians lived on the Nile River, the first writing, the Old Kingdom of Egypt. A little intro. More about methodology. Okay. So they talk about the first nomads, right? We see stuff like first. So there's that overlap with sequence. They give a little story about a family. Then the first nomad farmers went to the Fertile Crescent. And they give you a little map. Had to tend to stuff for months. So they talk about time once again. And then you'll see that, oh yeah, they have these little 6800 BC, and then they tell you about the other dates um, along the way, right? 3000 BC and BCE with King Narmer and or King Menes, right? A more serious one, a little more adult one, uh, would be the year the world broke in two. Um, this is a biography of four different writers. It's by Bill Goldstein. He's not any of them, so he's writing about T.S. Eliot, Virginia Woolf, D.H. Lawrence, and E.M. Forster. Um, and as you go through this book, you'll start to see a lot of dates, right? See 1922, 1922, 1922, big year. Then they sort of go back in time sometimes for the late 19th century or the year before. And you'll see a lot of stuff out of their diaries, and they'll tell you the date of that. Near my 40th birthday, she wrote, right? So chronological can mean, yes, this happened at the beginning of the life, middle of the life, end of life, but it can also talk about one year specifically and then just drill down on different dates that sort of feed into it. I mean, this is all pretty linear, meaning in a line, like beginning, middle, end. Um, but this is the sort of stuff that you'll see in chronological writing. Okay? As you are reading this week, keep a note after you finish each paragraph. How do you think it was organized? Was it chronological? Was it cause and effect? Was it any of these three up here? Comparison and contrast. All right, and then just think about some examples to the side if you could. Okay? So, what did we go over? Boop. We went over text structure and biographical writing. Specifically, chronological, we spent the most time on, cause and effect a little bit, and comparison and contrast a little bit, because that's sort of a review from last time. All right, so happy reading. Enjoy this story of Nikola Tesla. And then I'll be back for a little closer reading video. All right, thanks for your time and attention.